One season, 2 bathtubs, Ohio bathtub season. 2 best friends, no clothing, confusing bathtub season. It's bathtub season. It's bathtub season. It's bathtub season. It's bathtub season.
Hey, Austin.
Hey, Corey. How's it going?
Wet.
Same.
Hot. But not because of the water this time. It's just really hot in our house.
Just
I'm already sweating.
feeling steamy.
Yes.
That's how it's been at work for me, so I get it.
Oh my gosh. I am a stinky boy over here in Dayton.
I feel that. I'm a sticky boy in Cleveland.
Are you drinking anything fun tonight?
I have a Pinot Grigio I'm finishing.
Ooh, fancy.
How about you?
I feel like the Tick would approve. I don't know why, but I think he would approve of a fancy wine night for this. I am drinking a Guinness.
Nice.
Specifically the Guinness Zero. Like I said last episode, I'm still NA for a few months, just as our little baby is an infant, and I don't get much sleep, and I don't know how I'd function if I had alcohol with that too.
That's totally fair. I am not sober. I was at a bar last night, and I have a joint next to me.
Nice. So, but also, do you have any sack soup seasoning tonight? Sack soup seasoning.
I hate soup. It's the wettest of foods.
I am using a bubbling bath bomb from Mr. Bubble.
I have a Fala Llama holiday scented bath fizz.
Lovely. Lovely.
And I shared a picture of it on the new Bathtub Season Twitter, which is now up and running.
Oh, look at
To
that.
anybody who still uses that hell site. It is at Bathtub Season. I got it. So if you guys want to follow it there, I'm going to try and post. I have kind of stopped using Twitter a whole bunch personally, but I'm going to try and do better with the Bathtub Season Twitter.
And I will try to Twitter it all because I stayed the fuck off of that up until I started a podcast with you.
Before we get into the episode, though, I told you the other day that I had a little surprise for this episode.
You
and
did,
that
indeed.
is, I bought some stuff. I bought a huge stack of the Tick collector cards from Fox Kids from the 90s. I also purchased 3 different versions of the Tick first issue comic book. And I thought it'd be fun over the next few episodes to go through them. So I was curious, do you want to start with playing cards or one of the comic books and see what fun stuff is inside?
Let's go with the cards.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I don't know why. This is a big stack of cards. I haven't posted a picture of that yet on the Twitter, but I'll do that after this episode. There's 3 separate sections to this huge bundle. I don't know what that means, but it looks like this is from the TV cartoon. They're just screenshots. I've not looked at any of these yet.
Okay.
So the first one that comes up is the Tick collector cards number 48, called The Tick versus Arthur's Bank Account. And on the picture is just the Tick smiling at Arthur, and they have a spotlight like Batman, but it's a tick with 9 legs. So that's fun. The next card I'm very interested in. It is just on the front of it is a picture of the Tick holding. Oh shit! On Ed, Edd n Eddy, what was the board's name that the one kid talked to?
Wasn't it just Plank?
Plank. He's literally holding Plank. Like that's what it is.
That's so strange.
And on the back, it is the Tick, the little wooden boy in the belly of love.
What?
And there's a quote, and it says, "You know the worst sin in the world is disloyalty. You wouldn't lie to me, would you, little wooden boy?" That's really dark and ominous.
But that also feels unbelievably on brand for the Tick, from what I know at least.
There's also on the back a picture of Arthur, but he has really big tits.
What?
I'm not joking. I'll post these after. And this is for Fox Kids. Maybe there's a girl moth in the show and that's who it is, but I don't know. It's talking a little bit too about a bipedal whale named Blowhole and a super scientist named JJ Eureka Vatos.
Okay.
So that's two of the cards. Let's go through these. The next one is the moon shaped like Pac-Man. It just says "ha" on the front of it. That's not as interesting, but on the back there's a picture of a man who has a chair for a head.
A chair for a head.
Yep. The next one is interesting, though. It is a picture of Arthur and the Tick, and they're both standing in the middle of the street, dumbfounded, armless like action figures, and their arms are on the ground. The episode title, apparently, I think that's what these are, because it was episode 16. It says, "Armless but not harmless," in an attempt to garner the respect of their fellow criminals and win a coveted award at this year's annual Enemy Awards. The down-on-her-luck Venus and her adoring assistant Milo steal the Tick and Arthur's arms and their good names in one swift gesture when they attach these arms to a pair of hastily constructed robot duplicates of our heroes, who commit high-profile crimes that make the city think the Tick and Arthur have gone bad. And the quote, because each one has a quote apparently, is, "Remember yesterday, Arthur? I'd hand you something. You might hand me something back. Now look at us." Go through a couple more. The next one is the Tick beating up 3 different Santa Clauses.
Sure.
The title of it is "The Tick Loves Santa," and the quote is, "It's a Yule Tide."
What?
The name of this supervillain is Multiple Santa.
Multiple Santa. Did you fuck my mom, Santa?
Fuck my fucking mom? Did you fuck my mom, Santa? Yeah!
Ooh, these are really weird. Oh, here's Captain Liberty. CL's on the back of this one. It's called Coach Fussel's Lament. That's the one with the beaks and the 2 faces. Apparently, they fought the brainchild in that one. This one I can only describe as the Tick holding a bundle of roses, smiling, and Arthur is looking in at this surprise while the Tick vomits up an entire tree.
Sure, why not?
Like from the trunks coming out of his mouth.
And of course, why wouldn't that be?
Then we go back to kind of normal. We have the Tick just holding up a couch on this one. The title is fitting, though. It's "Evil Sits Down for a Moment." And the quote is, "Until I was 13, I was a coffee table."
I love that.
The villain they fought in this one is the Ottoman.
God damn it.
Some good wordplay there.
That's fantastic.
This one doesn't have any of the characters we know. There is a lady in a fiery one piece with her hand up like she's at a circus, and behind her is an enormous dolphin in a pant. As in, like, we have a pair of pants. He has a pant with like a button up that just goes down into a single hole.
Sure.
This one is the Tick versus Reno, Nevada. And the quote is, "You fools, money doesn't put fish on the table. Fish puts fish on the table." Yep. This one, he's holding a bald old man like a baby. It's called Devil in Diapers. And the quote is, "As long as the Tick thinks Metal's a baby, he'll fight with the rage of 10 monsters." I don't understand what that means.
Nope. I got
Need
nothing.
some context there. Looks like the Tick got married in this one, and the officiant is wearing a crocodile costume underneath his tuxedo, and the woman is very mad at the Tick.
Okay.
It's called The Tick versus Dot and Neil's Wedding. Teach me another one of those Yiddish words, chum. I only found out recently we're Jewish. So that's the thing.
Sure. Why not?
Arthur got buff in this one. He's like twice the height of the Tick, and he looks really mad, and his muscles the size of the Hulk. And it's called The Tick versus Arthur.
Oh.
The quote also, I feel like, needs some context. It is, Arthur, please, your brain is drowning in muscle. Give me the belt. So I would assume it involves a belt, but who knows? This one is interesting. He's in a fancy old manor, while what I can only describe as a tongue with lips stands next to a zebra and looks on at the Tick holding a butler that has a mirror for... Oh, it's the chair face.
Chairhead.
Yes, and it's the Tick versus Science is the name of that one. I was right. They fight tongue in this one, so it was a tongue.
Tongue. These are so interesting.
I know. I want to see some of these in our show.
It's funny though. I am kind of glad that we picked the trading cards because I feel like this is dancing around some of the things that do happen or get introduced in this episode.
Yeah. There's one more in this set out of 3 sets I have. I don't know if there's a difference between them, but it came in 3 separate big packs. But this is the last one, and it is the Tick teaching a college course. It's course number 405, so you want to be a superhero. Instructor is the Tick. And underneath that, it says good equals good and bad equals no good. And in attendance in the audience is 3 normal young men and a squirrel.
Sure. Makes sense.
And because it's the last card, I'll just read. It's the Tick versus education. And the quote is, it's up to you, the superheroes of the future, to hang the tire swing of nice from the highest branches and swing for justice.
Perfect.
So that was the first of my 3 giant stacks of the Tick collector cards. Ooh, do these have dates on them? Does this say when they came out? 97. Produced by Comic Images in Saddlebrook, New Jersey.
I got questions about the belt.
Yeah, and Arthur's tits.
And yeah, I hope they're related, but also for the sake of the kids, maybe not.
I don't know if there's a good answer to that.
I mean, we have Batman so...
We do have Batman Well. So I did see Captain Liberty in one of those, but I didn't see Batman Well.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And like I said in episode 1 of this, those were not the sidekicks that they wanted to have in the show. And that wasn't a bit. That's true. And there was a weird licensing where Disney owned some of the Tick copyright through the Fox show, but not all of it, and they could only get Batman Well and CL.
Proud addition to the Disney family and soon appearing on Disney+. I, for one, salute our new corporate overlords.
It's really interesting. I'd like to know more about that. I really should do a little bit of research on that because I am intrigued by that whole thing.
That would involve work, though.
It would, and I've not been doing a great amount of that.
But, Jerry, I don't know if you've noticed, but lately I've been drifting aimlessly. Now that you mention it. So, side note, everyone listening here isn't aware of this, but prior to starting recording, I was having some audio issues. And during this, the trading card portion, I realized the reason I couldn't hear myself, that was the problem going on, it's because there's a short in my fucking headphone cable.
Wait, what was it?
There's a short in my headphone cable.
Oh, shit. That's not good next to a bathtub.
It's outside of the bathtub.
Though, to be fair, none of this is good next to bathtubs, so...
It's fine.
Nobody's nerfect, right?
Did you just have a stroke, Pam?
I'll post a picture of what my setup looks like to the Twitter, and people can determine how dangerously I'm living. I did look it up, though. Phantom power cannot hurt you. If a mic phantom powered falls into a body of water, it doesn't produce enough wattage. You would feel it, but you would not be injured.
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Well, I'm more concerned about the mic than me, if that says anything. My setup's not terrible. Most of my electronics are outside of the tub. There is a microphone on a stand over the tub that does use phantom power. And I do have an iPad and my cell phone on a bathtub tray in front of me. But that's really the only things over the water. Everything else is coming in from the outside.
I have a tray that has my 15-inch MacBook, an interface, my microphone, and my phone sitting above the water.
Yeah, I didn't do that, but it's fine.
Hey, it's whatever. Live on the edge.
I like to live dangerously.
I think the Tick would be proud.
It's for justice.
It is for justice. It's bathing for justice. So do you want to get into season 1, episode 4, The License of the 2001 TV show The Tick?
I think we should.
So right off the bat, before we even talk about what's happening, the vibe of this opening scene is immediately different than any other episode. Like, it looks like it's shot in by a home video camera. It's shaky. There's weird cuts. It's a little gritty in a New York crime fighting kind of way. And I really dug it. It was so different. And that's something I'm going to talk about a lot this episode, is just the vibe of this episode compared to other ones. But that was something that I was like, wait, did I put on the wrong show? I literally, the first time I watched through this, I thought I clicked the wrong thing, because it just the image itself looked so different than the previous 3 episodes.
So I do agree that the vibe of this episode felt a bit different. It actually, I felt posed some problems for me when I was working on taking notes. I wasn't exactly sure how to take notes on certain parts compared to some of the past episodes. But yeah, I agree. I think the vibe of the show felt a little differently. I don't know that I went as in-depth with you as determining oh, this feels more like this show or that show or whatever. But what I did notice about that opening scene is
the ass.
Well, yes,
Look at that ass.
There. Okay, so I have trouble even knowing exactly how to address this scene. It's not that important. I mean, it is, it's set up, but where it starts isn't that important. Basically, you kind of come into the scene and there's a lot of action happening. The music and everything is
it's definitely in media res.
Like you said, sure. It's quicker, it's shakier. There is this sort of this imminent danger, this quick paced, thing happening, which we did see a little bit of on the last episode with the whole fight scene on the roof before Fiery Blaze came in. But yeah,
and his friend Friendly Fire.
And Friendly Fire, of course, can't forget the sidekick.
He would be so mad.
He'd be pissed.
Took your advice, Arthur. I quit. I took a stand. I said, you can kiss my ass, and I walked right out of there.
But it felt like there was a lot of action. There was a lot going on in this very brief intro.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately we find out that what we were initially seeing is a man stuck halfway a robot's ass. We don't know why, but a crew is working to get him out. And everything else in the situation is really kind of over. It's dying down. Whatever happened has already happened. There isn't this action that they made you believe that there was. There may have been before, but it wasn't happening at that time.
Yeah, it's the cleanup after the big fight.
Right. So I thought that was interesting. I thought it was interesting that they made it feel so intense for something we find out is over.
Yeah, it's a really cool, because I don't think they had the budget to really show big fights or anything. So it's cool the workarounds they find, this kind of in media res scene. There's no context, and you figure out the context as the scene goes along.
Right.
I did notice, though, that they say ass in this episode and talking about this scene. So we're back to being an adult show. They started cursing again.
So it's funny. I made a note about them cursing in this episode too, but it didn't register to me that they said ass in this scene. It was a different scene.
I think I missed the other one, so we got both the cusses.
I literally have ass in my notes, and it came straight from the episode. I'm reading one of them out of dialogue, and that just didn't even fucking register at all.
I mean, you might have just been thinking about ass. It happens to me sometimes.
It happens.
It happens to everyone, I believe, from time to time.
Look at that ass.
But going back to the episode, I don't think the Tick's thinking of much of anything. And there's these 2 cops. One of them looks exactly like Louis C.K. And they walk over and ask the 4 superheroes, the Tick, Arthur, CL, and Batman for their license and registration.
Before they do that, they're talking about how hot Captain Liberty is, and one of them's kind of like, oh, watch this, I'm gonna make a move on her kind of thing. And he approaches the 2 officers approach the superheroes, and before he asks for license and registration, he's kind of trying to play on to Captain Liberty and see if he can get anywhere. And he says, "What do we got?" And Captain Liberty responds, what do we got? We've got a man stuck up a robot's ass. What does it look like we've got? And that's the point that, you know, it turns and he goes, okay, license and registration, like, you know, the drill kind of thing. But I feel like that's an interesting choice of opening line. Like, they've all been on the scene of this incident. The cops should definitely know the situation already.
You know, I wasn't surprised, and I've alluded to before, that I'm pretty sure the cops are only in this town to give out tickets for minor offenses. So I'm not surprised that they don't care about what happened here, or they're not aware. All they care about is the minor offense of who has a license. That tracks with what we've seen so far in this world.
They just keep strengthening that point. They really do.
Yes. And everyone hands over their license registration, except for, you guessed it, the Tick. He doesn't have a license. And then we cut to the diner.
The Tick does not.
Oh, he gets a ticket. He gets a ticket.
That's right. He does. He does get a ticket.
The Tick gets a ticket. That's nothing. Sorry. I interrupted your thought for that stupid joke.
Nope, worth
it.
It
wasn't a joke.
Worth it.
No, it wasn't. And it's still going on.
So,
Austin, do something quick before this ruins the episode.
Save me from myself.
So the Tick gets a ticket, and then we are in the diner booth again with all four superheroes. The Tick is reading his ticket as Batmanuel informs the group that many well-known superheroes operate without a license, including
Colin Boy.
And the amazing fork head, which goes fantastically with your chair head.
Yeah. And but the amazing fork head is a secret, though. You got to keep that on the DL, that he doesn't have a license. Colin Boy apparently is out in the open with not having a license. He doesn't care.
He's just blasting ass no matter whereabouts.
Yeah, no one wants to get near Colin Boy, so he's safe. Those cops don't want to go anywhere near him.
So then we get a great line from the Tick. How then does one procure this laminated rectangle of righteousness?
Yes.
And Arthur's just like, I'll take you to the DMV. See us fill out some forms.
Though, there's something that, real quickly, that CL is asking if anyone knows how to get grease out of her costume, which at this point seems like just an offhand statement.
It does carry over from the first scene. They do set it up. We didn't mention that when the cops when they first approach the superheroes in that opening scene, Captain Liberty is blotting at something on her suit. We don't know what it is, but this is the reveal of it essentially. I didn't make the connection that had happened, and this whole scene in the diner, I was thinking, has her colors always been like that dark and like grim looking? Because it's a good look. Like, she should just leave it that way. Like, her out, like it was like brown and grays and blacks, and it looked tough. Like, I thought she shouldn't have got it cleaned, but we'll get to that. And then we get the title sequence with the flashing lights. Of course, with the Tick wiping his mouth with the ticket to lead there. Yeah, after eating a salad. He was eating a salad. I wrote that down thinking there'd be some funny joke with the food, and there wasn't. So then we do get... Though there is later, though. There is. Food is a recurring thing in this episode. You are correct. They do kind of, come in and out with these jokes a little bit that's don't necessarily tie together, but, are related. A theme. A nice... Yes. A mouche-bouche. I don't know if that's what that means of food humor. Then we're at the DMV, and we do. It doesn't look any different than any other normal DMV. If anything, it's just as boring. Yeah, it's a pretty normal DMV. It kind of reminds me of the Columbus DMV, but not the one I went to. The one that I went to with Jersey at one point. But there's an exterior sign here that we do. I'm glad we're getting at least a little bit of this comedy back into the show that simply says the City DMV. Yes. There's a little bit more poster humor in this one. There's Thelma. Yep. Thelma is the DMV agent. That's correct. It throws me off because in Ohio, to everyone listening outside of the state, two people, I'm guessing there might be two people from Ohio listening and two outside the state. But we call it the BMV here, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles. So I might say things wrong in this episode when we are talking about the DMV.
And that would be why. I just wanted to throw that out there. If they're like, well, did he say BMV? Yes, I did.
I've never understood that, and I've never called it the right thing.
No, but Thelma's there. She's not having any of this shit.
She asked for the Tick's legal name. His response, the Tick. She grows frustrated, and she
asked for his birthday.
Actually,
And
before she even asked for his birthday, she says, "I don't." I liked this line. I wanted to make a note of this line because it brought me back to the episode where what the fuck was it? The immortal died.
Mm-hmm.
Because that was
Go on.
That was the one, right? Yeah, that where
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. What are you referencing?
Sorry. So remember the yes, it is the immortal, and Arthur's in the diner, and he that woman approaches him who's interested in him.
Mm-hmm.
And the Tick clearly has no understanding of time and how it works.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And I don't remember exactly what he said in that episode. It was, something about all these hours that didn't really exist, and
They have 1,795 hours left.
right, and he was like, pick one, little lady, or something like that.
Well, we have 1,696 and a half hours, little lady. Pick one.
And in this case, the same kind of thing. Thelma is frustrated, and she's like, I don't have all day for this. And the Tick is like, he's either just doesn't grasp time, or he's super willing to be helpful at every turn. Because he's like, but I do, dear Thelma. You can have half of mine. We'll share.
I like to think it's a little of both, but more so on the positivity in this one. I just got that vibe from him.
Absolutely.
And she then asks for his birthday, and he's like, well, of course I don't know my birthday. Who would be expected to know their birthday? And she's like, I know my birthday. Like, says her birthday. And he's like, he has no idea.
He says, oh, like you do. And that's when she says 3/17/69, St. Patrick's Day in the year of our Lord, 1969.
That's when the Lord's from. Okay.
So
they have a sidebar, him and Arthur, the Tick.
Yep.
Not Thelma. But I think the Tick would like Thelma to be in the sidebar because he says that she's making eyes at Arthur.
She really likes us. I saw her making eyes at you, chum.
And goes on to say,
Thelma and Arthur sitting in a tree. PLZGROB.
Tick. Which I wrote down because I had to turn the subtitles on to see if he was actually spelling anything. It was just nonsense letters.
Yeah, same actually. I did the same thing. I was like, PLZGORB. What is this? Yeah, so then at that point, Arthur gets very serious with the Tick, asking if he knows who he is and where he came from. And the Tick responds, of course he does, and ends up repeating, he's the Tick. At that point, Thelma just stamps the application rejected and hands it to them.
And this is one of the first of many moments in this episode where I don't understand Arthur. Because he's acting crazy surprised that the Tick doesn't know any of this. He's been living with the Tick for months now, I would assume. How does he not surprised that this is how this situation went?
I think I don't disagree. I don't think that anything about the situation is overly surprising, but I think that Arthur was maybe deluding himself, that there was
That's true.
There was
that
more here. There was more to know, and like he didn't know it, but it wasn't being hidden from him. So I think he had kind of a knee-jerk reaction to the information or lack thereof when he just thought that it was, whatever, just stuff he didn't know yet.
But we then cut back to the diner. This episode has some, other episodes had very fast cuts. This episode takes the cake. But we are back in the diner, and not a whole bunch happens in this other than a couple fantastic lines from the Tick. And I'm going to say one of them for my favorite line at the end.
Okay.
And I wrote down two, and I think right here I decided I'm going to keep one of them. But the big thing that I took out of this scene is Batman Wells reading the newspaper, and he is pissed because the Weasel made it to the front page for stopping a jewelry robbery. And he's like, well, I could stop a jewelry robbery anytime I want, and they never put me in the paper. And CL is like, when's the last time you stopped a bank robbery or a jewelry robbery? And he's like, I could do whatever I wanted to. But he's all pissed off. And that comes back later. That's a C story. There's a couple weird stories going on in this one. But I don't think there was much as far as story in this other than Arthur relaying just how clueless the Tick was at the DMV, and the Tick basically saying, I don't know anything.
Yeah, so you're correct. Most of this scene was honestly just continuing parts of the story and some pretty good dialogue. So I will avoid the dialogue, knowing you have a couple lines here, because that is most of what I wrote down on this scene. You're correct. It's a lot of just good dialogue. I don't know if you mentioned, you probably did, and I just glanced over it, that Batmanuel, the superhero Batmanuel is upset about is the Weasel. And actually Captain Liberty, just to clarify, is not in this scene. It is Arthur who says, when's the last time you stopped a jewel robbery? And he says, well, never, but that's not the point.
Thank you for clarifying, because we find out right after this where CL is.
Yes.
I know I keep saying CL, but I mess up every time I try to say Captain Liberty. I try to say Captain Justice, and I write CL in my notes because it gets really daunting writing Captain Liberty every time she's in a scene. So if people were confused, that's why.
Did you know that the Bible warns about lazy people wasting time?
So CL's at the dry cleaners. Pretty mundane thing. We see her in her civvies walking in and basically asking for her superhero suit from the dry cleaner. And he's like, we don't have it here. And she's like, you don't have it here, does that mean you lost it? And the guy's getting madder. He's like, we don't lose things here. Maybe you took it to the wrong place. And she's about to go off on him when Mr. Handsome walks in.
Yeah.
Wait, no, there's something before that. There's another superhero in there with her.
Yes. So when Captain Liberty walks in, we're witnessing another female superhero pick up her dry cleaning. They briefly commiserate over the dating pool for female superheroes. Captain Liberty,
which I thought was a great point. I wrote that down. I had 4 lines of things just about this conversation between these two superheroes, and I was looking at my notes and completely went right by them. But yeah, I loved that. I never thought about it, but dating as a superhero would suck because all the other superheroes are mostly dumb or evil villains, and the civilians would be terrified to date you. So who are you gonna date? I never thought about it, but it's a really good point.
Right. So this was the setup for the shopkeeper, dry cleaner, whatever you want to call him's reaction, is that she says something along the lines of, like you said, they're muscle-bound egomaniacs, or they're average civilians afraid that the supers will use a ray to shrink their Johnson.
What are our options, you know? I mean, who is out there? A bunch of muscle-bound mutants and egomaniacs that think just because they can bend steel, we're supposed to bend over. And then the civilians, well, they're scared we're gonna zap them with a ray and shrink their Johnson. You know?
Yes. You don't hear that. You don't hear penises refer to Johnsons too much anymore. So that was a throwback.
Yep, that was definitely a joke of the time. Made me think immediately of Austin Powers, in fact. But yeah, you can see after Captain Liberty says this, you can see the shop owner has a kind of shocked look on his face. And at that point, then she goes to pick up her dry cleaning, like you said. While she's waiting, the handsome stranger approaches, and they start to try to just make flirtatious small talk. Captain Liberty's upset when the man comes back unable to find her garments. And we know that his reaction is, somewhat reasonable fear because she's a superhero and just made a comment about the Johnson, that this random guy, he has no idea about any of this. And he actually intervenes, and because he's bewildered by the man's reaction.
The handsome man does. The handsome man intervenes.
Yes, the handsome man intervenes because he's bewildered by this dry cleaner's reaction, and he's like, just call her when you find it. Like, this isn't that hard. And then Captain Liberty goes to leave, charmed by the man, and he asks her to dinner.
Let me ask you a question. And be honest. Do I make you horny, baby?
I don't have the exact wording down, but I did write that it was a very smooth way of asking her out. I was like, okay, you got some moves.
I don't have the exact line either, but it was something along the lines of
Wasn't it like you have other outfits? Yes, because like, do you have any other thing like else to wear?
Yeah,
because
do you have
the
other
way
clothes?
he says it, and this happened both times I watched it, it sounds like he says, do you wear leather? And I was like, whoa, that is a...
So I did not hear that. I'll admit I did not hear that. But yeah, he asked if you have other clothes, and then something along, and she says yes, I think. And then he's like, good, I wanted to make sure you had something to wear to the dinner I was about to ask you to. You're saying something like that.
Right. I did write down, because I was half awake the first time I watched this, that I thought it was funny that the dry cleaner has lost her super suit. And I don't know what joke I was going for there, but I thought I would mention it.
Okay. I don't have anything, but I wish I did.
Honey! What? Where's my super suit?
Yeah, I didn't watch it twice last time, and I think it showed. I felt afterwards, I was like, man, I got a lot of things wrong. So this time I went back to watching it twice.
Weird sidebar. How long does it take you to watch these episodes, given the fact that we're taking notes?
It's like an hour. It takes me a very long time.
Yeah, same. So I think I probably spend, these are about 20-minute episodes, and I think I probably spend about 2 hours per episode.
Yeah, I think it's, well, this time I did something different. I think I'm gonna do this going forward. I did the long, slow note-taking, pausing every 30 seconds, note-taking the first time. And the second time I only paused it like one time because I wanted to repeat dialogue. I was like, I'm not pausing it. I'm just reviewing the notes and adding anything that I missed or like, vibes, because I was pausing it so much I missed. And I'm glad I did it that way. I think that's how I'm gonna do it in the future. Or maybe I'll try it reverse where I'll watch it once and take very quick notes and not pause it and then do more in-depth notes. I don't know, play around with it, but I liked it better this time.
So actually what I've started doing is I watch it once and take no notes, and then I watch it again, pausing it frequently, taking constant notes, and actually editing some of the audio as I go.
Now, are you naked while doing this?
Not usually.
Okay, so maybe that could also be skewing why we're having issues, because we're naked when we're talking about it.
Perhaps we're not, we're not quite in the right frame of pants.
Our Johnsons aren't out.
Right.
You gotta watch TV with your Johnson out sometimes.
Sometimes.
But I digress. We go back to the diner/bar, and I think this place is interesting because depending on how they shoot it, it looks more like a diner versus a bar, but it's the same location each time. And Batmanuel is there by himself. He is on the phone trying to find a PR agent from the Weasel so that he can get in the paper. And there's not much else. It's a very short scene.
Yeah, no. The scenes basically starts with Batmanuel tearing down the Weasel for using a PR agent and saying, if you do not know who Batmanuel is, then you do not deserve to know, to immediately pivoting to, so how much does one of these things cost? And he starts taking notes.
That was a pretty good Batmanuel.
Thank you.
We then cut to the police station, and the Tick walks in and says a line that I just thought would be like, this is an Austin line. Basically, I don't have it written down because I swore you would, that about the smell of the place and how it stinks of crime and urine and piss, and he loves it.
So I almost wrote it down. I actually didn't. It was something along the lines of vomit, urine, cheap perfume, and vermin fecal matter, I believe.
I think so.
And how that is what does he say? It's an ambrosia to his olfactory senses, and it's the cream, I want to say creamy stench of justice you just can't shower off, something like that.
Oh, do you smell that, Arthur? Urine, vomit, stale coffee, cheap perfume, vermin, fecal matter. Sweet ambrosia to my olfactory senses. It's the stink of justice that you just can't shower off.
Now, my question with this was, does he love it because it's the smell of justice getting served, or does he love it because he's a tick? And those are things ticks love.
That's a good question. He would certainly provoke you to believe it is the former, but you make a point with the latter.
This would be a good sidebar for a conversation I want to have about the Tick, but we've already gone on, I think, too long with this episode. I'll save it for another day, but just so you guys know, I've got some thoughts about the Tick that need a long conversation.
Here for it.
Yes, about him physically. But the Tick walks up to the front desk of the police station and he says, I want to report a missing person. Myself. And he says it just like that, like all intense, like myself. And then we get flash cuts of him getting a mugshot for some reason. I mean, I get getting a picture taken, but why a mugshot?
Yeah.
He's getting dental x-rays, a cotton swab, and then Arthur and the Tick are posting super creepy pictures of the Tick all over town, asking if people know about him. And also milk jugs, which I don't know if that's how that works with missing people, but I was more so impressed with it. But the one thing I thought was hilarious with this, because Arthur starts doing like a monologue over the top, like, we didn't know where the Tick came from, but we were doing everything we could. But the music drop underneath it is like, it's almost note for note the opening music to Serial, the podcast. Like, it threw me for a loop because he's doing this crime monologue over it. And it was the funniest thing is like they predicted it like 20 years before that show came out.
Weird.
Oh my gosh. You're going to have to put a drop of it in there. You can cut me saying that out. But it's hilarious. I don't know. Have you listened to Serial?
I have listened to Serial.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. The piano, like, do. Like, it's that underneath it, which I just thought was hilarious. I had to pause it because I was like laughing. It's one of the few times I laughed out loud in this episode. It wasn't even a joke they were trying to make.
I'll have to go back and listen to that because I didn't make the connection, but I'm interested.
But that's what happens there. The scene ends with them back at Arthur's apartment looking worn out, and the Tick is watching Sesame Street, sees Grover, and calls him Daddy. And then the scene ends, and I am so confused.
So, first of all, yeah, the montage ends with Arthur wrapping up his narration, and he's at this point questioning, is the Tick lying, hiding something, an amnesiac, or actually crazy? And it's at this moment, this exact moment, when he wraps up this thought, that the Tick sees Grover from Sesame Street on the TV. And it's are you my mama? Like, he's like, Daddy?
Was he an amnesiac or just plain nuts?
Daddy.
And you know what? I don't even think they're trying to make the joke, but I thought it was really funny because there's been a few, we haven't said it, but there's been a few times where they've made the joke offhand that the Tick may not be even from Earth. And isn't Grover like canonically an alien?
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
So I don't know if they were meaning to make that joke, but it's also perfect.
That's true. That's absolutely true. And I believe that movie that places Grover as an alien, if I'm not mistaken, I could be, would have come out by this time.
It would be close. It would be around the same time. We get the quickest cut then. It's like a 30-second scene, if that. And it's just Captain Liberty getting ready for the date with Mr. Handsome. But did you notice how big her closet is? Her closet's the size of my bedroom. Is she rich?
I did not notice the size of her closet. I guess the way that I saw the shot, and I might be misremembering it, was that the camera was inside of her closet and we were looking out at her in her bedroom, reaching into the closet. So I guess
that's what it looked like to be the first time I watched it. But the second time I watched it, I really paused it and looked at it. It's all closet. The room's just huge.
Huh. I know. I didn't notice that. I didn't make that connection. But yeah, the only point of this is to see that Captain Liberty is getting ready for her date and that she is choosing plain clothes.
Yes. We don't even see what she picks. We are then back to the Tick is talking to himself in the mirror. He tells Arthur that he remembers nothing. And I think that's more of a blanket statement about himself than just the situation, or both.
Yeah, I liked I liked that delivery a lot. For me, it felt like It felt like the Tick was... This was the first glimpse of the Tick actually maybe going crazy.
Yeah.
Because he's mimicking himself in the mirror, but in an increasingly antagonizing manner. And it just abruptly ends with him turning to Arthur and being like, "Who am I?" And yeah, Arthur's like, "You really don't remember anything?" And yeah, the Tick says, "I remember nothing. Does that count?"
It is at that point that the phone rings and they leave. They walk into the police station and there is a cute woman there and says, "Yes, officer, that's my husband," pointing at the Tick. And the Tick says, "She's pointing at me." And then everyone has surprise eyes to the camera and we cut for commercial. And I only say that because this is, I think, the first time in 4 episodes that I noticed a cut for commercial in the episode. Like, they really did it for dramatic suspense. And I was like, that's weird. I don't remember any other point thinking like, oh, that's the cut to commercial.
Interesting. I didn't make that connection, but I get that. I definitely know that from other shows where I've been like, that's the commercial cut. Like, so
we cut back. Did you want to say anything else about that opening thing or move on? I feel like I've talked a lot this episode, so you can take the reins if you want, sir.
So we're at the police station, right?
Correct.
All right.
No, I'm in a bathtub.
Well, my bathtub may or may not be in a police station. So yeah, this woman calls the Tick Ted Glick, and I liked this. I like this line here. They get back together. Arthur's kind of staying to the side, witnessing this. She says that she's been worried to death, and the Tick says,
"Worried to death? Oh, you poor zombie. That's no way to die."
I had that noted as one of my favorites, but I don't think it would have won for the episode, so I'm glad you said it.
Yeah, I don't think it won for my favorite either.
Now, there is a line later on in this same conversation that may win for me.
Okay.
He is just going along with it. He is like, "Cool, this is my wife. I'm Ted Glick."
Yes.
And Arthur's like, what's going on? And the Tick's like, he's like, "I'm living a double life, apparently. I hid it in the best place possible. From myself, maybe I'm living 3 lives." Or the record, according to him, is a quadruple life. So he's kind of playing like he knows what's happening, but at the same time, just not at all. And I thought that was a fun choice that were like, it made me question for a second, like, does he actually know this woman and has been like hiding it, like a little part of his history? I believe he is as stupid as he's been seeming, but maybe he was actually hiding this. I wasn't sure. And I thought that was fun.
So I'm glad that you felt that way, because I didn't feel that way watching it. My personal perspective on it was simply that, you know, he's the Tick and he doesn't know who he is. That's been the whole, you know, point of this episode. So he has someone telling him who he is. And he's like, well, yeah, I must be that. She knows this, so it must be true. Like, so he's just doing what he's playing the role. He's becoming the role that he thinks he's supposed to be now.
Unquestioningly.
Exactly. So, but that does make Arthur feel that the Tick was purposefully hiding this from him, and he's getting upset. So the fact that you had that reaction is very validating, and is the reaction that Arthur was having to it.
See, I don't even agree with that. But before we go on to the next, where we get in more into Arthur, there was a really weird poster in the police station. Did you notice this?
I did not.
There was a poster behind the Tick that just has a cop standing in just a man standing in a room, and in really bright, bold letters, it says, "Not all our cops wear the same uniforms." And it's just the weirdest thing. Like, that's not a joke. Like, what is that? What does that mean?
I have no idea what to do with that.
That's what I was like. I was trying to grasp at something they were going for. It was just maybe they're just their brand of absurdism, and I love it.
So,
but Arthur gets pissed, and I don't understand why. Even if he was hiding it from him, why does it matter? I do not understand why Arthur was as mad as he is. It's bizarre how mad Arthur gets. He's like throwing shit around his apartment, like screaming at the mirror. Like, what? I was so like, I had like whiplash. I'm like, I get being like frustrated with like just the situation and dealing with the Tick being dumb, but like, there was no reason for him to be as angry as he is.
So before we get to that, there was a little bit of build up to that, just so everyone knows. Because this is the point where I went, oh, hey, we have profanity again.
I missed this.
When Arthur accuses, in the police station, when Arthur accuses the Tick of having a double life, the Tick responds, that we know of. Who knows who else will come out of the woodwork and tell me who I am? I could be leading a quadruple life. That'd be the record, as you said. And Arthur responds, you bastard.
Oh, I did hear that. I didn't even make the connection.
The Tick thinks he's talking to his wife and says that's no way to talk to a lady. Arthur's like, I'm talking to you. And Arthur says, then you were hiding it from me. And the Tick says that I hid it in a place where I forgot. And then he says, Arthur says this is like bigamy.
This is the line. Oh my God. This is like bigamy. And the Tick says, it's not like, it is big of you. And I thought that was such good wordplay.
But so I like that. I agree. I love that wordplay. It was a fantastic delivery. But the whole rest of the scene really just builds up how upset Arthur is while the Tick.
But why?
The Tick stays unbelievably oblivious. Like there is nothing getting through for the rest of this. It is only Arthur. The only point is Arthur being upset and the Tick having good lines that show he knows nothing.
I'm on the Tick side on this. There's no reason for Arthur to be this angry. I was just confused.
Then, he leaves and says, don't forget, even though I'm Ted, you're still Arthur. Arthur's in his apartment. He's angry. He's upset, as you're saying. He's yelling at the mirror. He pulls a Polaroid of him and the Tick off his corkboard and tosses it aside. And again, quick cut, we're at the diner.
And Batman has some glossy 8x10s of himself, and he's on the phone again. He does a literal spit take when he hears the cost of the PR agent, which I thought was fun. You don't see those too much anymore. And then Arthur shows up in his civvies. So we're seeing lots of people outside of their costume. No, costume's not the right word. Their uniforms?
No, costume's right.
Okay, their costume this episode. And he at first is confused. He's like, this seat's taken. And Arthur's like, it's me, dude. And he lets him, sit down. And then Batman wants to show him, in his words, some really hot photos of himself.
Would you like to see some really hot photos of me?
No. Which I thought was fun. To have that kind of confidence in yourself, man. And Arthur's like, no, I don't want to see those. And then Batman goes on to say there's nothing wrong with being aroused around other men, which I thought was very forward thinking for Batman. He's really coming along for me in the last couple episodes.
Fair enough.
And then CL shows up in her civvies, and Batman calls her Janet. Did we know until this point that was her name?
Yes.
Okay, we did. I did not know that. But she is now seeing Handsome Man. But Handsome Man doesn't know that she's a superhero still.
Yes, this is correct. During the course of this, Arthur is trying to talk to Batman about, how he's feeling about the whole Tick thing. And
this was great.
Batman is showing him absolutely zero attention. He told it.
I thought it was funny. He was like, so Arthur's telling Batman this, like, what's going on in his life. And Batman like, wait, can you hold on a second? And starts dying on the phone. And then he's like mad at Arthur for stopping. He's like, you can go on. And it was like, the first time I didn't catch it, but I was like, wait, he literally told him he has to hold on for a second. So I thought that was funny.
Yeah, no, he's like, hold on a second. And he's like, oh, no, continue. I multitask. Like, it was
Batman multitasks.
So, Arthur's trying to talk to him about how he's feeling about the whole Tick situation. He has none of Batman attention. And then, Janet CL shows up, and Batman after she shows up and sits down, Arthur starts to, talk again, and Batman immediately cuts him off and tells him to leave so he and Janet can have a private conversation about the next time they'll be boning.
And she's like, it is going to be a very short conversation because it's never happening.
And that's when she divulges that she's seeing someone, and then also that this person doesn't know that she's a superhero. And Batman makes a comment about that being a problem when this man finds out who wears the cape in the relationship.
So maybe not completely forward thinking. I think she kind of retorts like, hey, not everyone thinks like that. And Batman is like, well, I do. And she's like, well, there's a good thing there's only one of you, I think is the line she says.
Yeah, it's something like that. They're bickering and Arthur walks off.
And then he's trying to get his accounting job back. But why? I'm still so confused about what's going on with Arthur. Like, he can still be a superhero. We just determined in the last episode that he's not a sidekick. He can still be a superhero. He could hang out with Batman and CL. Like, he's going off the rails more than the Tick ever has. It's so bizarre.
He's a fragile young man. But yeah, really, really quick scene there. He's either at the accounting office or he's in an unemployment office. I'm not 100% sure.
He says he loves accounting. It's an accounting job.
I wasn't sure if he was just like at an agency trying to get another accounting job.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so he's basically just trying to convince both them and himself that this was all just a big, frantic, feverish mistake, and his passion is really accounting, and that really does fulfill his life and whatever. Again, very quick scene, and then we are at the Glick home, we'll say.
No, it starts out with them looking at photographs.
Yes, vacation photos.
Their vacations. The Tick is always in a superhero costume.
Yep.
In all of these pictures. And she's asking him if he remembers any of this. She asks him, do you remember our trip to the Grand Canyon? And he says,
I remember vaguely making the Grand Canyon. Was that the same trip?
I wrote that down. I really enjoyed that line. It was so good.
And then she asks him, here's us as the Eiffel Tower? And he's like, I fell? And she's like, no, the Eiffel Tower. He's like, oh, you fell. And some more good wordplay.
Yep. He leaves thinking that she fell on that trip, and also that he battled the faces of Mount Rushmore.
Yes, I did not write that one down, but that is something that is mentioned. He is then tossing the world's largest salad.
Yep, there's where your salad comes back.
He does ask if he can go on patrol. He really wants to go on patrol.
He does. He very much wants to go on patrol.
But she's like, no, not right now. And he's like, what about after I finish doing this before dinner? And she's like, we're about to eat. You can't go on patrol. We're about to go, just sit down. And then they cut to after dinner. And this is the world's largest dinner for two people I think I have ever seen. Did you notice how much food was on this table?
It was quite the feast.
So both plates have huge steaks on them with mashed potatoes and salad. There is also a basket full of rolls, a separate plate with an entire roast on it, and then an entire other loaf of bread.
Tame that slab of beef, Bobby.
It's a smorgasbord.
It is a smorgasbord. I think the Tick would appreciate it being called that. He has not eaten much, though, because he wants to go on patrol. He gets really mad.
He does, yeah. She mentions that he hasn't touched his dinner, and he's like, I know I haven't. Like, I want to go on patrol, basically. And then she says, but what about dessert? And his response is fantastic.
What about dessert?
Jehoshaphat, woman, crime is my dessert.
Dessert.
Crime is my dessert. I love the taste of crime, especially after his description of the smell of justice with, the vermin fecal matter and urine and cheap perfume and whatever.
Yes. I'm sure as Johnson is very hard thinking about that.
I mean, same. So then we cut to Captain Liberty's date. Her and
with Mr. Hottie.
Yeah, her and handsome stranger who never gets a goddamn name.
Yep.
Are walking down the street. I think into an alley that is.
It's the door of her apartment.
Yeah,
is down this alley.
Back of her building.
And then she invites him up, as George would say, for coffee.
Right.
Coffee's not coffee. Coffee is sex.
But they get mugged. There is a man there who is trying to mug them, and she beats the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And then apologizes for some reason. I was so confused again at this scene. She's like, sorry. Like, for what? If I was a dude on a date and this happened, I'd be like, fuck yes, thank you.
Well, this was 2001. And yeah, Captain Liberty, like you said, she's inviting him for coffee. A mugger threatens them. And the man is obviously scared. He's cooperating.
Handsome man, not the mugger.
Right. The handsome man is scared and he's cooperating. And CL's just like, no, fuck this, basically. And she starts like berating the guy, the mugger, not the handsome guy.
That would be funny though.
It would be. Let's get into some humiliation porn. That's a separate hard drive.
That one's full.
So full. So she disarms him and calls him a loser as he runs off. And the guy is just pretty much in shock. I mean, to be fair, probably emasculated if we're assuming the general 2001 means of thinking. Regardless.
I mean, we're not in the 50s, Austin. This was 2001.
Yeah, it was 2001. Like, it was the 50s of its own time.
Is that what people say about the aughts? That it was the 50s of its own time?
That's what I'm going to say now.
Okay.
But, I mean, like, I'm not saying that that's what should be the feeling or the takeaway there, but it's not to say that many men wouldn't feel that way. And
stupid men.
Aside from that, she is pretty like aggressive as a woman.
I don't know. If I was him, I'd be like, let's go up your apartment as fast as you can get, because it's on.
Fair enough.
But maybe that's just something I gotta deal with.
That's hot.
Do you have to deal with that, or do you just have to date a superhero?
I don't know. We cut to Arthur's apartment. He's watching TV alone in the middle of the night, still in his work clothes, watching Sesame Street. And I want to know,
why is that on in the middle of the night?
That's what I wrote down. Why was Sesame Street on in the middle of the night on cable? What channel is he watching?
Give them to me.
What dark desires does he have?
All of them.
That's hot.
Oh dear. But then the weirdest thing happens. He just says the Tick and gets up and leaves. Again, why? Arthur is losing his mind.
See, it took some, it took reading into it, but I took that as he realized the Tick wasn't lying, because previously he had seen him react so genuinely to Grover and like just not knowing that he was like, no, there's something going on. There's something going on.
Okay, I guess I could see that. I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with Arthur? He's the crazy one.
That's fair.
We cut to him in his moth outfit. He's in an elevator and he runs into CL, who is now also in her costume. They are at her place, and apparently Captain Handsome did not come up for coffee, which is a shame.
Coffee's not coffee. Coffee is sex.
Sure.
I guess if he was that shitty, then she should have invited him up. It's what it is. She is having a bit of a lonely night, but Arthur's up there not to help with the loneliness, but to get her help with getting the Tick back.
Yes. So they use the National Superhero Info Center.
I didn't even see that. That's hilarious. I know they were going through something online, but that's funny.
To find out that Mrs. Glick is actually Sybil Xylem, and she has a history of bribery, forgery of official documents, mail fraud, wire fraud, indecent exposure, and failure to curb dog. I also thought it was interesting. I don't know if it's intentional or the connection they were trying to make, but Sybil Xylem sounds a lot like psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms.
It sounds like they were trying to make a joke there, so I bet you're right.
So at this point, we go to Sybil Xylem's house, where the Tick is leaving a note while Sybil sleeps, explaining he will have left because they want different things. For instance, he wants to go on patrol and she wants to have dessert.
What a simple man. I love it.
Leaving this note, he's interrupted by a knock at the door. It's Arthur and CL, who've come to tell him the truth and get him out of there.
The Tick is at first like, let me go grab my things. And he's like, wait, I don't have any things. And he's like, wait, there's one last thing I have to do. And he goes back and signs and finishes the letter, which I thought was so sweet. Like, that's such a nice thing to do. Like, I think I mentioned it earlier in this episode, but I think we really see in this episode that even though there's nothing going on in that head, what is going on is he's just a good guy. Through and through.
I completely agree. That was my final note about the scene as well, is that he actually, he finished the entire note, what he wanted to say before being interrupted by this knock, but he does return to the bedroom to finish the note by adding simply, love Tick, even after knowing this.
Yeah.
But yeah, then we cut to a rooftop.
And we find out that the Tick was once called Tuna Boat Tony, and I fucking knew it. He worked on a ship. I said this in the last episode. I was so happy. I called it.
There was, in fact, a Tuna Boat Tony line.
I called it.
I want to know that long story, as he says.
I'm not Arthur. I'm not going crazy. I knew there was something naval going on with the Tick. I was so happy when they said that.
There were a lot of references.
Tick or Ted or Tuna Boat Tony.
Who?
Long story.
But he's just kind of rambling on, about his life. And Batmanuel and CL are there, and he calls Batmanuel something like the night. What is his words? Did you write it down?
I didn't.
They played off like it's some really crazy thing to say. He's like, "Oh, you fine dark bird of the sky," and Batman was like, "See what are we dealing with here?" But it was like one of the least weird things he's ever said.
Yeah,
so I think they could have done better.
It was like the something night of the nocturne.
Oh, bless your perceptions, you shiny knight of the nocturne.
See, this is what I mean. What the hell is he talking
Just
about?
go on.
Fine.
And then they're like, well, we can't, I'm glad this all worked out, but we still can't do anything if you don't get a license.
Yes.
And that's when Batmanuel suggests, just lie.
Yeah, he says, the only way to really know the truth, you must create it yourself. And Captain Liberty says, how do you do that? He says,
lie. And then we cut to the Tick has a superhero license with his name being IP Daily, which is great. It's so corny that it's past the line of being dumb and back into being hilarious.
Right.
Apparently, he weighs 260 pounds. It is a Class 2 license. I want to know more about this class system with the superheroes. Is one better or is higher number better?
I don't know.
Either way, the Tick is somewhere in the middle. It says the address as well, but there was no funny joke there. I think they missed an opportunity there. Cops accept it. They call him Mr. Daly. He's like, call me IP. And they walk away from a crime scene. They then pass a newspaper, like those quarter bins where you put a quarter in to get a newspaper that you used to see. I feel like you still see them sometimes and not as often, but he pulls a newspaper out. Batman does to see if he's in the paper. He's flipping through it, getting madder and madder. And then his picture is there for funny photo of the day, which that's the best they could come up with. There were so many jokes they could have made. I mean, that was so dumb. That wasn't to the point of being back to being funny. It was just dumb.
I agree, but I do feel like it may be the most insulting thing for him.
Just because it's so on the nose.
Right.
That's true. He is a very vain man. But the Tick thinks it's pretty cool.
You're
and
right.
then we cut to credits, and we no longer have credit scene or talking like we did in the last episode. See, they're still figuring out what to do.
Yep, they don't know.
That was the episode. So, Austin, did you like it?
I did. I did like this episode. Like you said, it was a different vibe. Arthur was fairly manic, but the Tick had just some great dialogue throughout that took no one anywhere except into more frustration and insanity. And I just that's what I want.
I loved this episode. I think it was the least funny episode we have seen so far, but from a vibe standpoint, this is my favorite one so far we've seen. I couldn't even put my finger on why. Maybe it felt the most coherent, like from beginning to end could be it.
Sure.
Maybe it was the way they shot it differently slightly. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it was more gritty a little, just a slightly, but it just felt smoother. It felt like a real TV show that should be on TV in a way that the other episodes have felt like rough drafts.
Sure.
I really, really like this episode. Like it might be my favorite episode so far, even though I laughed the least compared to the other episodes. on a whole. But I really hope the rest of the season continues what this episode did, whatever it was.
Fair enough. Yeah, I did like the vibe of it. It was different. There are things I liked about some of the other episodes and the vibe that they had as well. But I'm curious to see where they continue to go, because it does seem to be ever changing still at the moment.
Yeah, I didn't really have any other final thoughts other than that I like how they're keeping the characters mostly still just really good people. There wasn't like a deep, heavy, undertone of any kind like the last 2 episodes have had in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 episodes, I mean, those episodes did it in a good way. This episode didn't have any like overarching theme like those, but it was still, they were all good people trying to do good things, other than, and I think it was more the writers than what the character would have done, with Captain Liberty apologizing for beating up the robber, like I mentioned. I hope she grows more as a character, because I think she's grown the least out of everybody. I like how they're developing Batman well a lot, and I hope it continues for him and the other characters, obviously.
Yeah, and I think that Captain Liberty simply apologized because she turned around to realize that his reaction was exactly what Batman warned her about.
True. Because at least Batman was like, I understand other men would not feel that way, but I would. So at least he knows himself, I suppose.
Yeah. It may not be the healthiest of choices, but he owns it.
He recognizes it. Yeah. Like I said, this one didn't have any like deep things I wanted to talk about or anything like the others. I really like this episode. The whole time I was like, I don't know what it is. I'm just digging this so much, like so hard. And I really hope it continues that way. And I mean, most shows are like that. I mean, we're only on episode 4.
Right.
Like, the fact that it's as good as it is at this point is a miracle. Most shows are horrible their entire first season. Did you find a line of justice, as I was thinking it should be called in my head while I was trying to find one?
A line of justice? Is that what we're calling our favorite line now?
I don't know. We can. I was trying to think of some fun things. I can say mine. We already said one of them. Okay. Was the one about that's bigamy, and he's like, it is big of you. The other one was when they're back at the diner after the DMV. The Tick says, Arthur, I am a citizen of the moment. I've built my white picket fence around the now with a commanding view of the soon to be. Perfect. Just distillation of a good Tick line.
I also had that line. I like that line a lot.
Did we say the other one he says in this scene? I don't think we did. You can read it if you want.
We didn't. I believe I know the one that you're talking about, though.
I have it right in front of me if you want me to say it.
So if I'm not mistaken, you're referring to the one where this is the first time that Batman suggests perhaps the Tick is from outer space. And the Tick responds,
does it really matter? Does it really antimatter?
Have you checked the local loony bin?
That is not at all the line I was thinking.
No. Which one? Okay, so was this the same scene then as the Silver Ladle of Justice?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so
I am the sterling silver ladle of justice, pouring its foamy cream over the just-picked strawberries of crime.
Tick! That won't fit on the application.
I really like that one too, but I think I like the Citizen of the Moment line a little bit better.
Yeah, I liked those 2 lines a lot. Obviously, I pulled them out.
I think if I had to pick a favorite, like I said, it was down to the that's bigamy. That is awfully big of you. Or Arthur, I'm a citizen of the moment. I'm going to go with the citizen of the moment line is my favorite line from the whole episode.
Okay. I'm
putting my foot down.
I'm admittedly between 2. I am stuck between...
You really don't remember anything?
I remember... nothing. Does that count?
I really liked that. I liked the delivery. I liked how, nothing was a thing to him. And the other one...
That's true.
The other one is the one that I mentioned before.
Worried to death, oh, you poor zombie. That's no way to die.
like it's so quick. It's so thrown away, but it's such a great literal response.
I wrote that one down too. That was a great one. Yeah, and I considered the Arthur and what was her name at the DMV sitting in a tree?
Thelma, yeah.
Thelma and Arthur sitting in a tree. Pizgrob.
I'm confused.
Yep, yeah, I have that one as well.
Well, I picked a tie for, I think, the first 2 episodes, so I think you can have those 2. Do you want to hear what season 1, episode 5 of The Tick is called and its description on Crackle, where you can watch this at home?
Suck it to me.
It is Arthur Needs Space. Arthur's chances at dating an old high school classmate are jeopardized by the Tick. Captain Liberty struggles to stop some nude photographs of her from being published. I'm a little scared of how you did say this is 2001, as you said. I'm worried how they're going to deal with that. There may be some questionable choices in next week's episode.
Absolutely. Also, what happened to the lady from the other episode that was interested in Arthur?
Right.
I want more of that.
Right. I thought that she drew. Well, I guess he never actually got her number. She did draw a picture of him, though.
That's true. I did not. I remember. I made a note that I saw no number on that drawing.
So that will be next week's episode, and I am looking forward to it as always.
Absolutely. Nudes and high school crushes.
Yup, and hopefully warmer baths. This bathwater has gotten a bit chilly, and something has happened to me that has not happened the other times we recorded this. I have gotten pruny.
The prune of tomorrow, available now.
I'm surprised it hasn't happened in the other episodes, but I am so wrinkly right now.
So it did happen to me in at least one of the other episodes. It's not happening to me currently. My bathwater has also cooled, and it is a nice Kool-Aid blue color because of my bath bomb.
Oh, yeah.
Mine didn't change colors. I was hoping for some nice Christmas colors because it was a Christmas bath bomb.
That's a bummer.
Christmas in June. But yeah, until next week, I know I usually have a sign-off line, but this time to all our listeners, I just want to say, go take a bath. You deserve it. Life's hard out there, and that's an easy way you can take a little time for yourself. You know, get in a bath, get warm. You don't even have to listen to this. I hope you listen to this while you're in the bath. Oh, that's a weird thing to say. You can listen to this while you're in the bath.
Please bring me in the bath with you.
Yeah, if you can find us, that's an option. I suppose. Until then, Austin, I will talk to you hopefully before then, but if not, I guess I'll talk to you then.
You know, we'll figure it out.
Yep, yes, we will. And our streak of awkward endings continue. Goodbye.